Hey, welcome to another edition of the Get Made podcast. The Black Muslim Male, premier Black Muslim Male podcast here in America. Thank you for sharing this time with me and being here with me. I'm your host, Hassan Clay. As always, got some things I want to kind of run at you. And really, I just believe this is going to be something that's going to be important for us to kind of really look at. Um, and hey, by all means, please share your comments with me. But what we're looking at is, as Black Muslim men, are we really understanding femininity? Right? We are. All of us want a woman, and all of us want a woman to be feminine. Right? What we understand to be feminine. But are we, as men, understanding femininity, and even femininity of the times in which we are living in? Right? Um, because I really kind of identified three areas, if you will, that we might be missing the mark at in dealing with femininity, right? Um, that's not to say that I don't believe women are understanding masculinity as well. Because to be honest with you, I think we all have kind of missed the mark. We all have kind of got caught in a few things that really make us ops to one another at the end of the day. Which is really crazy because everybody wants somebody, right? And contrary to popular opinion, everybody ain't gay, right? All women don't want women, and all men don't want men. We really do not want to be people who are having same sex with the same sex, right? We really want companionship, that type of intimacy with the opposite sex, right? So therefore, we need to kind of see some things a little different. Uh, this episode is not really to kind of talk to women because I don't really talk to women like that with the podcast. Um, I kind of address a lot of things, right? To be able to, because I know I do have sisters who are checking out the podcast and who are getting some information from the podcast. But a lot of this is geared towards men, and how we need to, or how we can, I don't say we need to, how we can do certain things a tad different and have a different mindset and different understanding of what it is that we're doing just to be better. The idea is just to be better. It's not to be perfect, it's just to be better. Right. And so here we go. I got three spots for you. So let's buckle up. Let's get at it. So the first one, we're missing a mark, understanding femininity, because one, we're viewing femininity, and which is kind of crazy to me. We're viewing femininity from a weakness and passive point of view. Now, this is going to be crazy because really all three of these are really going to run in line with each other. Uh, so really, one might be the cause of the other, right? But I just want you to kind of see where we kind of making some of the where we missing it at. So when we start talking about weakness and passivity, a lot of times when we come into a thing, there's just this understanding of what gender roles look like, right? We come in, and we're going to probably talk more about this in the third one, but we have this understanding of what gender roles look like, right? Or what we think gender roles supposed to be, right? And so, um, and then we have these frameworks that we think are supposed to play out. And so, but a lot of times we are caught as Black Muslim men, probably Black men in general, but I am talking to the Black Muslim male, the Black Muslim man. What we are doing is we then start connecting certain economic understandings to our situation, right? And or Well, first I'm gonna start with the economic piece, right? And so when we start looking at this idea of how we are supposed to show up, because the economic piece is going to be important, because we have this, we have this ayat or this verse that says men are the protector and maintainers of women, right? So in some instances we take that very serious. Some instances, we have more balanced understanding that. Some of us may have a more balanced understanding of that, but it gets promoted in the harshest of ways. So there are controls when I used to have a professor. They used to always say, he who has the money wins, right? And so when you are then a man who, you really don't want your wife working, right? There's a lot of controls that come with that. I'm just going to be honest with you. It is. It's a lot of controls when it comes to when your funds take care of everything. It's a lot. It's seemingly a lot of controls where it should be more to it than just the money, right? There should be the mindset of leadership and various different things that comes with that, and the education that might be meted out in the house, or just the strength, man, just to having strength in the home, right? We miss that because we kind of lock in on a financial piece. And what happens is, in this culture, this society, our women have been empowered, right? They've been empowered to not really have to rely on a man and his money, right? Because in some instances, a lot of us are really economically adjacent to being broke. Just gonna say for what it is. A lot of us are not having enough. When we say broke, what we mean is not having enough funds to kind of really just take care of everything, especially in the lifestyle that we are accustomed to having in America. Everybody living, a lifestyle, almost a lifestyle of debt, right? So either a man has to work like oh hell and not spending time at home, or because he's trying to take care of home, he's trying to keep up with his lifestyle, or he's not, in i.e. his woman is helping and working with him, right? And if she's something she chooses to do, something that in some instances, it's not even about a choice, right? Let's keep this real. It's not really something. It's not really about a choice. So it's almost, I won't call it forced, but it's a necessity. Having multiple incomes, having two incomes in a household, especially you got kids and things of that nature. There is dang near mandatory having multiple streams of income and coming in the household, right? And so we're talking about two people who are full time working and everything else, in order to keep. Now how they manage that, if he's paying all the overhead stuff and she's taking care of the other things or whatnot, how they play that system out is just how they play that system out. But the reality of it is, you know the economic structure of a household is not seen, and sometimes, because women have been also taught to be able to. I mean, let's just be honest with you. Women have been directly, indirectly, and vicariously affected affected by how some men show up, right? If he's able to pay child support, if they're not together, he's able to pay child support. He's not able to do this, he's not able to do that. And so therefore some of the onus of her her upkeep and her children upkeep is going to be on her, right? So in that is an empowerment itself. Just keeping this 1,000 with you. And that is an empowerment in itself, right? So that naturally changed the psyche of a situation, right? And so when we are then looking at how, as men, we're trying to understand femininity, we understand we want, we know we in some instances we need the help. We're not necessarily asking for it because many men aren't really asking for the help, but they know they need the help, right? And she's willing to help. But in this, which is going to run into number two, there may be some pushback. She just ain't going to work and coming in and saying, dropping the money off, and giving them, I'll go to work every day and then I come and I take my whole check and give it to you. That used to be the way men used to do it back in the day. They used to go to work, take their check, come home, give it to their wife, get a few dollars, kind of see what they can, a few things for themselves, you know, but then they get that whole check over to their wife because she's the one who primarily paying all those bills, right? Meaning she's taking the money to go pay the bills, right? So, but that's never really happened in the reverse. So she got her own money, she got some thoughts. She's been empowered to have that, just by default. So as men, I think we miss that part. I think we really miss that part, which then runs into that second one because we started talking about emotional literacy. I won't necessarily say emotional intelligence. I'm gonna say emotional literacy, right? We're not aware of how to understand and and deal with tones, verbal expressions or nonverbals and different things. A lot of times, if especially as Muslim men, we're gonna take a lot of things as just straight disrespect, right? Now that doesn't mean that you know she shouldn't have some type of controls or some type of management over how she kind of presented a situation. Sarcasm. In Islam, sarcasm is not even permissible, really, and we do a lot of sarcastic type of stuff, right? And trying to pass that off as being witty, right? No, it's sarcasm. It's not wit. It's sarcasm, right? And so we have to really kind of, and especially within the black community, because we have been culturally um, equipped and cultivated with, we've been culturally manipulated, if you will. When I say manipulated, I mean that we've been handled, right, to be able to just be sarcastic. I've had some clients who thought sarcasm was a pretty good thing, right? And then I try to tell them, no, that's not really a good thing because, Allah tells us about sarcasm in Surah Hujrat, Surah 49, where He tells us to stay away from sarcasm, to not be sarcastic, right? And so we're naturally, unwittingly, unknowingly doing it, right? So now, okay, we're not really able to kind of tune in. We can't read because when we talk about literacy, a lot of times we just have to have the mindset and the intelligence to really understand and comprehend, if you will, what's taking place. So therefore, we get in our feelings and we get mad and we start calling stuff disrespect because she's not towing this passive line, if you will, right? It's part of the first one, weakness and passivity, where she's not towing that passive line, if you will. She's not meeking out and humbling out. And if look like you don't raise your voice, she don't cow it out, and she will know, okay, but is anything wrong? This and that, and I know some women have done this many times. Husband got mad, man got mad, then he upset about something, then what she do? She want to make sure he's okay. Is anything wrong? What's wrong? This and that. We've seen that before. I ain't telling a lie. I really don't like that when that takes place. Or they go to apologizing. for no reason. It's like you apologize for no. I'm sorry. What you sorry for? You know what I mean? And so, sometimes that's because the cultural dynamics is that in order for manhood to exist, there has to be this upper and lower situation that's exaggerated, right? Because we are given a degree over men, given a degree over women, but then we are exaggerating it, right? The gap isn't as wide or as high as you actually think it is. It really isn't, right? And so, because the idea is that we created equal, but he gave us a degree over, right? And if we understand degrees, when he said degree, it's not degrees, it's not understanding it as something that has plural to it. It's a degree. So it's a slight over, right? But we exaggerate it, right? And that's probably going to tap into the third one, right? Just the cultural traumas. You know, we have just been taught some stupid stuff, men and women actually. We have been taught some backward stuff, right? We have not been taught, manhood or femininity or masculinity and femininity in its proper place. And then when we come to Islam, then we start looking at other cultural people, the way other cultures are doing things and whatnot. Then we automatically think that this is the way it's supposed to be, right? We looking at people in West Africa and looking at people in Indonesia and looking at people in other places, Saudi Arabia or different other places. We're looking at these ways of doing things as if their way of doing is the Quranic way or the Sunnah way of doing it. And I'm going to say it's not some of it in it, but yeah, it is a lot of more cultural. They are doing certain things a little bit more cultural, right? And so I don't know how many clients. Look, real talk. I have had clients in 19 countries. I've worked with clients on 5 continents in 19 countries. And I have been able to see various different nationalities and groups, how they function, right? And a lot of them function, although they call themselves Muslim, they are functioning based upon some of their cultural understandings, right? They're doing things based that has no groundwork or no groundwork whatsoever in Islam, right? And a lot of times, some things they're doing is actually contrary to Islam, right? I'm just saying, a lot of stuff that's being done is not really based upon Quran and Sunnah. It's based upon what they decide they want to do. Now, some people say, well, people have a right in their culture to do what it is. Yeah, but it still has to fall up under the banner of Islam. It still has to have the understanding of Islam in it. Just can't do what you want to do. We have that problem here in America now as Muslims. We see, especially a lot of younger Muslims, and some of us too, who are older. We are doing what we want to do, and then still saying that we're Muslims. We're practicing Islam, and as we go to Juma on Friday, then we do everything we want to do. Some of us may or may not even be praying. Some of we get real religious in the month of Ramadan, right? I'm just gonna put all this out there, just being real, because I'm talking to you, right? We do all these things and check yourself about it. Just check yourself about it. You know who you are. If this is you, then wear it. The shoe fit, wear it. You know, and or change the shoe. If this shoe fit, then wear it. But then change the shoe, right? Do something different than what it is we're talking about. A lot of us aren't practicing. A lot of us probably don't even pick up the Quran, right? We say we're Muslim. We changed our names. We've done a lot of stuff, especially in the African American community. We changed our names. Some of us second generation, third generation. We have these names, but then we're doing something totally other than what these names signify or what Allah and His Messenger said to do. Right? We are thoroughly engulfed into this culture here, our society here. that has no Islam in it. And then when somebody's trying to practice Islam, you see, and when you're around them, you seem so out of place, right? You just really feel like you're out of place, right? Because you're looking at, then you pass it off as, oh, they just think they're righteous, or they think they're more righteous than I am. They think they're more spiritual than I am, and all this other type of stuff here. You dismiss that you're not doing right, or you're not right by somebody else trying to do right, you know. But that's a whole nother subject too. Those who are trying to do right, how we take it overboard, right? But still, in all, we're not meeting in the middle. We're not trying to do the middle thing. We're not trying to be consistent in the middle. We're all out here on these ends, trying to be consistent on these ends, and it's not working. But when we start looking at this understanding of how we are then looking at women, and how we're not appreciating and appreciating femininity, we have this bad understanding that you're not a good Muslima if you're not doing this, and this right here, right? I don't know how many women that came in and felt like they've been shamed, guilted, or whatnot. Our brother, Dr. Yusuf Malik Frederick, doing a whole thing on spiritual abuse, right? He's doing a whole research on spiritual abuse, and he's been on our show before. And he and I have worked together on some of these Muslim boot camps that we've been doing for the last couple of months, right? So, yeah, it does set up for spiritual abuse. Some of the things that we are doing, I'm not calling you an abuser. See, there's a difference. I'm not calling you an abuser, but what I'm saying is some of the ways we are handling things are abusive, right? And a lot of that is based upon what we've been taught or what we believe it's supposed to be versus where it's supposed to really be, right? If we look at our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we see that he was very gentle, very kind, very compassionate with his women, with his children, with various different things. Even though he was still firm, he was gentle. You know, we have a lot of characteristics that we're not picking up based upon who he is. We're not understanding based upon who he is, which is a dynamic man. His story, his the story of his life, and we need to kind of pick it up. You know what I mean? And start really digging into it and understanding the man. This is a part of the problem for us. If we go back to even emotional literacy, some of this too is we don't have literacy. You see what I'm saying? We're not picking up books and reading it. We're not asking questions based upon, how can I be a better person? We're not examining our own self. We're not reflecting on our own lives. We're just out here doing. We say, La ilaha illallah, that knows God worthy of worship but Allah, that Muhammad is his messenger, and we think we're safe after that. No, that's just the beginning of the safety. That you're not safe. You're just at the beginning of the safety. Because how many of us can wake up as believers and then go to bed as disbelievers? How many of us can even wake up as disbelievers and go to bed as believers? You see? So, you know, things can move, things can be fluid if you're not watching yourself, right? Or if you're not trying to do better, then you can be fluid other. But if you're not trying to do the right thing, you can easily fall over into another category that's not right. Like I say, never condition of a person change unless they change that within their own soul. If you change in here and you start getting a little bit more corrupt, you're going to be corrupt. It's just that simple. And if you're not changing how you hear on how to identify how to deal with your women and your children or things of nature there, then you're going to continue to get even sicker here. Just gonna be honest with you. You're going to continue that, you know. So that being said, would kind of like to drop a few things on something that we can do. Taking this episode as an educational piece, not so much as I want to lecture. I just want to bring about an awareness of how we might be missing the mark, right? Because this is what this podcast is about. It's about the awareness. It's not a gossip column. It's not it's not diving into some celebrity lives and all this whole type of stuff here. This is how we can do manhood differently. How we can be, make manhood something a little different, right? And bring it to the epitome of manhood, because that's what we should be, especially as Muslim men. We should be that, right? And so it shouldn't be a show of manhood. That used to be some of the problems that we probably had growing up, NOI, different other things next year there. And I'm not saying that everyone was like this. I want to make sure I'm clear. Everybody wasn't like this, but I'm saying that there was this show of manhood, but manhood actually wasn't really being practiced in private. What that looks like is there's this looking like a strength and stoicness, and just like some of these YNs out here right now, they look like they're ready for it at any time. They ready to get into it at any time, but then they can't really muster the common basic situations as far as emotional intelligence, how to really just interact with somebody not from a low base position, right? Not from a position of being the base to be the lowest of the low. They actually can work from the highest level of the mode, right? So here we go. One, we will have to reframe how we are thinking. We will need to have to take some of our time to be able to just reflect. Part of that too is we need teachers, or we need to be up under teachers who are teaching this, right? We're not teaching this uh, narrow-sighted, this myopic understanding of manhood, right? We're teaching manhood from a position of balance, strength, with kindness and compassion, right? That's how we need to start looking at manhood, right? Two, understanding if you are in a situation to where your woman is working, you know, maybe do consult with her a little bit more. But yeah, maybe do explain to her in a way, hey, that really, you talking to me any type of way other than, just being respectful don't work for me, right? But then I do want to hear, because a lot of times they come across like that because they don't feel like their voice is being heard. Y'all know how many times I done heard that line in my lifetime, right? That their voice is not being heard. And I get it. I probably didn't get it when I was a little younger, but I definitely get it now, you know. Um, and some of that too. I just think it was some stuff that was really just kind of blown out of proportion too. I ain't gonna get that. I ain't gonna act like that wasn't the case. You know what I mean? Because sometimes people want to be heard just on the strength of being heard, right? And sometimes it's a meaning of wanting to be heard to then quiet your voice, right? And that also happens. And I know a lot of men are trying to make sure that that doesn't happen to them. But then that means we got to start dealing with women who are actually emotionally literate as well. You know, understanding that she doesn't think from a rational point of view, meaning a logical. Let me change that. She doesn't think from a logical point of view a lot of times, but then she understands that you don't really think from an emotional point of view sometimes. And how do we merge those two situations and talk to each other and have this kind of conversation to where I can hear you can hear me, and we can do better. Because at the end of the day, the household has to grow, right? So that's the second one. And last but not least, real talk, anything that you thought was the case of how culturally a situation looks, you know, run that through the framework of understanding Islam properly, right? understanding Islam from a point of view of, look, real talk, I want to make sure that you understand that, and I'm saying I'm having a conversation with, I get that that's how they do it overseas, and that ain't how we do it here, right? But I also want to make sure you understand that how we do it here ain't probably working for me either. So how do we kind of come up with a better understanding? Because the reality of it is, you can build your own culture in your own home. That's on y'all. Y'all have the right to say what's going to work and what's not going to work within your home, right? Nobody gets to dictate that what's going on in your home. You and your wife, you and your husband, y'all get to determine what that looks like, and it's not going to look the same for everybody. You know, how I see a situation, a friend of mine may not see that same. My sheikh may not see it the same way I see it. You know, or my imam may not see it the same way I see it, or my brother may not see it the same way I see it, and or I may not see it the same way they see it, and that's okay. You know, and even in that, we still can learn from each other. I mean, because he may have some information that I don't have, and I can get that information because at the end of the day, it's about me trying to be better. Because and who am I trying to be better for? You know, I'm trying to be better for my family, right? You know, our prophet said he was the best to his family. So what am I trying to be better for? I'm trying to be better for my family. I'm not just trying to be better for me. I'm trying to be better for my family, right? So when we start having that understanding, we start getting in that direction. Oh man, we're going to arrive. We're going to exceed, and we're going to excel. I firmly see it. I can see it. I can understand it. When we get to that, and it may not happen overnight, but it can start tonight. As y'all listen to this podcast today, it may not start or not even get better overnight, but it can start tonight. You know, and so with that, hey, I would love to hear comments on it. If it's private comments, because sometimes a lot of people are private or whatnot. If it's private comments or it's comments on this section here, up under this podcast, under this thread, by all means, let's get your comment. Let's get, because if we're not talking, then we're not succeeding. If we're not succeeding, that means we're getting left behind. And I'm telling you, y'all comment on all that foolishness that's going on in the world. Y'all, man, you don't know how many times people are sit and they say they ain't supposed to gossip. They be giving me gossip all the time. Man, you see what such and such did? You see what such and such did? The internet is full of it. But when you start talking about these type of things here, mm-mm, we're not doing it. But that means that the system is working with us. You know, the system that we are all supposed to be against is actually working in us, right? It's keeping us held back, right? So that you know, getting over illness here, so kind of a little mellow with it today. I wanted to be a little mellow today, but we're going to make this thing work one brother at a time. You know what I mean? This is going to be the real understanding of each one, teach one, each one, reach one. Yeah, I heard these words before, but it didn't really have its real flavor that it's supposed to have. It didn't have its real impact that it's supposed to have. Well, we're trying to have impact here, right? That's what's happening here. We're trying to have impact. So with that, leave your comments or just get some salams. It's always great. And of course, we're gonna see you guys again next week. This podcast come out at every Monday on YouTube and Facebook at 7 p.m. on Mondays. Of course, the Hassan Clay Experience, how you can find me on YouTube. Well, on all platforms, to be honest with you, TikTok and Instagram is the Hassan Clay Experience, right? So by all means, please, 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 please check us out. We got something for you. We're gonna have some more great guests. This is a second new episode of the year. I'm looking forward to have some dynamic guests on. Hey, I can't give it all myself, and we're gonna have some real conversations. Sometimes it's just me, and of course, any conversation, 'cause I'm not having a conversation with myself. I'm kind of talking to you, right? But I'm gonna have some great conversations with some people who coming on, and just how we can be better men, right? Just how we can be better men. I got grandsons. I want them boys. I got sons. I got grandsons. I want them guys to be the best men they possibly can be. And so, and I want that same for my brother. One for your brother, what you want for yourself. All right. Until then, next Monday, 7 p.m. Be here. I appreciate you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.